Well, hello Glue Troopers, and I have a lot to talk about in this video. I've been on the road for a while, as you know. I did manage to finish the book on Crawford Gordon, and that will be part of the deep dive I plan to take on the Canadian CF-105 Arrow story at some point. So, what did we do on this trip after I was done with the road build? Well, Steve of Steve's Model Mania came to pick me up. And the first place we went was to Ollie's in Maryland. Unfortunately, they didn't have any kit models, although they did have some nice books. But we were just waiting for the hobby shops to open up. The first one we went to was Star Hobby in Annapolis, Maryland. And Star Hobby is an excellent hobby shop. Its primary emphasis is on trains, but they have everything well represented. I found all kinds of model rockets, a very large dedicated section to slot cars, including a lot of Carrera's stuff. And of course, they also had some die cast, a lot of RCs, but of course, my primary interest was the kits. So we went down to the enormous row they have dedicated to kit models, and they had a fantastic selection, including a lot of stuff you don't often find on the East Coast, at least not in the shops I've been to. They had a lot of kits by Pegasus and Polar Lights. They even had a large collection of Kitty Hawk models with a sign telling us that Kitty Hawk's out of business, so get them now or cry later. And they had Hobby Boss, an excellent representation of Atlantis, even some Bronco kits. I even found some cars by J.R. Salvino, which I don't think I've ever actually seen those in a hobby shop before. And Heller and AMT and just a whole bunch of stuff, and every category was covered. They had all the Star Trek and science fiction, and it was very well represented. Just all kinds of stuff. Really good Star Trek collection, including a repop of the old Explorer set, which may be one of AMT's worst kits ever. I know, because I had it as a kid several times. And I played with those things, and the handle on the phaser kept breaking off, and the flip top on the communicator, which was the wrong color and didn't flip all the way over, kept breaking off. I couldn't help it. I kept buying it. I kept playing with it. I bought it. But more on that later. They had the Ravel monster from the Black Lagoon, which, as we all know, was actually originally the Aurora monster from the Black Lagoon. Sometimes folks forget that Ravel was actually kind of really monogram at that point, and they had bought all of Aurora's stuff and put some of the creatures back into production. Amongst the Pegasus kits, one of the things they had was the Pegasus Wonder Woman. I'd never actually seen a lot of these kits in person before, and I actually texted my wife and asked her if she wanted me to get it for her, but she makes her own Wonder Woman doll, so she was like, nope, that's okay. And they had the Disney House of Horror kits. So these are the ones that have some play value, that actually have some mechanisms in them that work. And we found a lot of cool stuff. They had the Piranha from the Man from U.N.C.L.E. And I saw the Pinto, and I was thinking we just did the live stream on the crappy cars with good kits. And I almost got it just for that reason, but I already had the Explorer set. So you're on the road, Max. Everything's got to fit in your bag. They had the Spindrift and the Terminator Hunter Killer. Just, I could have spent all day just looking at the box art. They also had something I thought was really cool. They had a brand new full rack of the new Ravel paint racks plus the Ravel glue. And Steve had told me that the Ravel glue was supposed to be really good, so I went ahead and got some, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So they had everything represented. They had balsa kits, resin, styrene. I'll give you a couple of pan shots. A lot of it's, like I said, model railroad accessories and everything make up a pretty good part of the store, because that's a major emphasis of theirs. But they had just about everything I could think of that you would want in their selection of kit model stuff, die cast. I mean, it's really a very well stocked store. The people were super friendly and had a great time there. So then Steve and I, of Steve's Model Mania, broke for lunch, and then we headed over to Laurel, Maryland, to a place called Hobby Works. And I knew I was going to like this place as soon as I saw the rockets in the window. So this place is kind of the yin to Star Hobby's yang, whereas Star Hobby seems to be primarily model railroad centric with a lot of kit models and excellent stock. The Hobbyworks was more of kit model centric with a lot of railroad and RC stuff on the other side. So these two make a really nice fit to one another. So we go in there, and the first thing I see are the Gundam kits. And I noticed I had a lot of Gundams that were already built on display, a lot of models that were built on display. I used to go to a place in Maryland when I lived up there. It was actually one of the store outlets for the Squadron shop. And this place had that vibe to it, and more on that in a bit. So I was really happy with all the models I had on display, beautifully made. I think this RC truck was probably a Tamiya kit. And I looked down, and there is an entire row of paints. I mean, everything. You're going to spend all day just right there. So go around to the next aisle. It starts off after the Gundams. There's all the model aircraft. And it was a really good mix. They weren't centric on any one category of aircraft or any one manufacturer of the models. They pretty much had just about everything in a really nice mix. And they had displays usually intermixed with the models. So you go down the armor section, there'd be model tanks, that sort of thing, which I think is a really good motivator, really good idea. So after the aircraft, they had, again, sci-fi, Star Trek, Star Wars, Godzilla. I mean, what more do you need? I'm telling you, Star Trek Godzilla crossover, that's a thing. Are you listening, Hollywood? They had some TV cars, a lot of real cars, including one that was kind of Steve's, or one of his favorites, the 63 wagon with accessories, because this comes with several different engine options. I mean, get a couple more car bodies, you could probably make 4 cars with that kit. But I really think that having all these accessories of the model and giving all these options, well, that's just the way it should be. They also had a small but dedicated motorcycle section. It's always nice to see when people have their displays organized so nicely. And they had ships, and they had cartoons, including all of Atlantis' Snoopy stuff. And one thing they had was a lot of armor. Now, this was mostly Tamiya, but not exclusively. And it was really nicely arranged with, of course, displays, built models, build-ups in with them. And they even had that big trumpeter Kampfpanzer 8 mouse. And that's for the armor guys. For a tank that was never put into serial production, it really does grab the imagination. I'm sure that's a must-have for all the hardcore armor builders. Of course, they also had kit models of real characters, real figures, and then there were more displays. When I looked at the displays, which I could have spent all day just doing that, they had a lot of not only beautifully made kits that could have been in any issue of Scale Modeler magazine, but one of my personal favorites was a really well done model of the Sherman tank from the movie Fury, complete with the cast. When I went over to the train section, I actually saw something unusual, the NASA train. Now, I knew that NASA had trains, but I don't think I'd ever seen a model one before. And I saw this gigantic PBY hanging from the ceiling, and at first it was so well made I thought it might have been styrene, but it looked too big, and it turns out it was balsa, probably the Guilo's kit, except for the nose wheel being missing. It was just a magnificent build, really great work. And then I found out, I start talking to the manager, and he tells me, oh yes, at one point when the Squadron shop ceased operations, the owners of this shop did acquire some of their cases and displays. And so this is kind of, I understand why it had the Squadron shop vibe. It's got some of the old assets from it. Really a great shop. So I'm going to do a build video on that Explorer set I got over at Star Hobby. Oh, by the way, I did buy a model while we were at Star Hobby, a model car. I forget which one. But I wanted to give a shout out to both of these shops. If you live in the area or if you're passing through, they're definitely worth a visit. I think you'll have a great time there. And I'm going to do a build video on the Explorer set. I know how terrible, it's got to be AMT's worst kit. I mean, there's no alignment pins. When I got back to my hotel room, I was going to try and take a nap before my evening's flying, which got pushed back due to weather, but that's a whole nother thing. But I just was too excited and I couldn't, and I started working on it. And I tried that Revell glue. It works very well, and I like that dispenser. That long stem on the end has a needle in it that pops a hole in the tip, and it makes it very easy to make long, smooth applications of glue. So if you see that stuff, you might want to give it a try. So that's where we're at with that. Probably when I finish with the Explorer set, I'm just going to put it on display up on the shelf with my Star Trek models, even though I know it's highly inaccurate, woefully off scale. They just love it. I can't help it. I make no apologies. Guys, remember to make it what you want it to be. And as always, model on.